In the previous video, we discussed about scalar multiplication, which is multiplying a vector with a scalar. Now we are going to move on to study what happens if we multiply a vector with another vector. And we call this kind of multiplication vector multiplication. Okay, so we are going to shift our topic to vector multiplication. So imagine today I have to multiply a vector A with another vector called vector B. And let me be more specific by saying that A, let's say A is 5 Newton with a direction 45 degree above positive axis. Then B is probably 3 meter, then it's pointing towards the positive X direction. Okay, you can have different units because now you are multiplying things together. Multiplying things together don't need the same dimension. Okay, so let me visualize it. Then this will be 5 Newton pointing 45 degrees above positive x-axis. This will be 3 meters pointing to the right or positive x direction. Okay, if it's a regular multiplication without the direction, then multiplying 5 Newton with 3 meter is just 5 times 3 equals to 15, right? Very straightforward. If there's no direction involved, any multiplication is just what we have learned since primary school. But now, vector comes with direction. You cannot ignore the direction. In that case, how do you multiply A with a specific direction with B, which has another specific direction? How to multiply the direction? So there are a few ways of doing it. If you think about it logically, there might be two different ways of dealing with this kind of situation. One of them is if for vector A and vector B, if the parallelness between A and B is great, then the greater the result of the vector multiplication. Means by if A and B are very, very parallel with each other, then the result of the multiplication will be a great result. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Another way is the greater the perpendicularness between A and B, the greater C will be. Okay, so this is sort of the opposite of the one on the left. For this one, the more perpendicular you are, the greater the result of the multiplication. Okay, so we can have two ways of multiplying things. One is if it's very parallel, then you get great results. One is if it's very, very perpendicular, then you get great results. So there's two types of multiplication, and the first one focus on parallelness, the second one focus on perpendicularness. These two terms doesn't exist. I'm just trying to show you the how parallel it is. That's the idea of my parallelness, and how perpendicular it is my idea of perpendicularness. Okay, it's a made-up word. Okay, so for parallel, if you want to have a greater effect or greater result if they are parallel, then you have to do scalar product. Scalar product works like this. If it's very parallel, then you get great result. If it's vector product, then the more perpendicular you are, then the greater the result. Okay, so these two are different types of vector multiplication. Okay, there are two types of vector multiplication. One of them is scalar product. One of them is vector product. Vector product is not the same thing as vector multiplication. Scalar product is not the same thing as scalar multiplication that we discussed in the previous video. When we talk about multiplication, it's talking about vector multiplying with scalar or vector. When we talk about product, then it's always vector with vector. If it's scalar product, then it's this equation, A dot B. You see, I purposely use this symbol here, dot. Okay, if it's a scalar product, we write it as vector A dot vector B. Okay, then the answer will be C. Okay, so since it's a dot as the multiplying symbol, then we also call this as dot product. Whereas for vector product, you can see that the symbol is the typical cross that we have. So if it's a cross, then this is a vector product. And since it's a cross, we also call vector product as a cross product. Okay, so there are two ways of multiplying vectors together. One way is the scalar product, which will get greater result if they are parallel. One is vector product, which will get greater result if they are more and more perpendicular. So these are the two ways of multiplying vectors, and we will look at each of these products in the future videos.